It's How I Make Money with Andy Beadle. Our guest this week is Michelle Weinstein. She is the owner and lord of thepitchqueen.com. She is the Pitch Queen, and I'm really excited to have you on today. We have not had anybody really who was in that sales coaching space, which is, I've been doing this for 23 years. This is my fourth business. And every time somebody asks for advice and says, oh, hey, if you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, what do you need to concentrate on? And I always say at least a third of your time has to be spent as an owner on building relationships, selling. And it's work that we just hate to do. I mean, we love talking about what we do, but we hate the selling piece. So I'm super grateful for your time. Tell people a little bit, if you will. I think the Pitch Queen is a great, I just love the whole idea. Tell people a little bit about kind of what you're doing in your business now and what you're excited about. This has obviously been a super weird year for business all around, especially small business. And I am sure news from the front lines would be useful.
Yeah, no. And thank you so much for having me first. And I don't know how you found me, but I guess picking a niche worked. And so, yeah, I love sales. I believe that is the nucleus of any business. And most entrepreneurs, start a business not thinking that they signed up for a 24/7 sales career. So I am the reminder of that. And, specifically now I've morphed my business into mostly focusing with accountants.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I have a podcast called The Abundant Accountant. I also have a podcast for general entrepreneurs where I share a lot about my Shark Tank experience, other Shark Tank vets, service-based businesses, product-based businesses, you name it. I did that for almost 3 years. It's called Success Unfiltered. So I
Okay.
just put that show on hiatus. And my last episode I did was with Chris Voss, who wrote the book Never Split the Difference. So if you need probably the best book I've ever read in sales, I would definitely buy that one on Audible or Amazon. It is, one of the things that people think is that, oh, I can't sell. I don't know how to do that. I hear that all the time from my accountants.
Right.
Side of it. I'm going to hire people to do the sales for me so I don't have to think about it. So they avoid it and they push it away when really, I was speaking with a client this morning. We were doing a video testimonial review she did for me. And she took the bull by the horn, and now she knows exactly what's going on, and that the sales is actually the most important part of her business. And the more you push it away and shove it to the side, well, then you might as well just go get a job, because if you're letting other people run your sales or you don't have a pulse on it, right? Like if you have a team, then great. But she didn't even have a pulse on it. And within an 8-week period, I have a class for accountants where we create a sales process. So, they don't have to wing it, or she said, go by the seat of her pants. And she did over 21,000 in additional revenue that she would have never charged before in an 8-week period. Yeah. And, was she terrified? 100%. Did she have a lot of fear around it? Yeah. But she even said, people like me can learn this. It is a skill set that can be learned. And Chris talks about that. It just takes a lot of practice and repetition and being able to build a relationship and connect with clients and prospects. And majority of it is actually listening. So if you think about the sales process, if you can just keep your mouth shut most of the time, you're going to do really good. So that's what I've morphed my business in. It's theabundantaccountant.com is where they go. And that's pretty much 90% of my time is spent doing that.
Well, and not to speak ill of our CPAs in the world. And so my wife is a CPA, or was years ago. Then she was in commercial banking, and now she's a stockbroker, high-powered financial advisor. But she is probably one of the only accountants I know who is a naturally gregarious networker, Rolodex builder. I mean, and that is a field that if anybody was doing God's work in the sales world, that would be you, to help that group of people kind of be out there in the world. When I started,
and we do it in a way where they can be introverted. They don't have to change. Just stay the way you're at, the way you are. I don't want you to change. And, I love accountants. They're so smart. Out of college, I actually worked at an accounting firm called Moss Adams. I was a financial analyst. I always found myself going out to all the meetings with the partners. I was very
Right.
definitely like a magnet to all the sales meetings. I don't know. I think that's when the just kind of hit me. And and now I get to work with them. They CPAs, most of them have masters in tax, master MBAs,
Yeah.
you name it. I mean, such an intelligent group of people. And I always said I want to work with like the cream of the crop, and I can. And I have a
Right.
lot of smart friends now and clients around the country and even in Canada. So hopefully, a group of people from Australia reached out to me to train their
Oh, wow.
community. So I know Australia has their borders closed till 2022. So I'm probably going to be doing that one online, even though I was really excited to maybe go on a business trip.
Yeah.
A business of first class, business class, across the world trip sounded really great to me. But I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. So we'll stick to the online versions of these
We'll
classes. But
see.
yeah, I love it. And yeah, introverts can learn this too. It's a skill set that can be taught. And it really just takes practice and repetition, and they can use their own personality. So I always talk about how I don't teach any scripts, I just teach
Right.
structure. And, between me and Chris Voss's book, you're in good hands if you're an accountant.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think there's something too to be said for the idea that if you've got if you own a business, that should be a product and a service that you love. And if it's a people, client related business, it really is, how do I do marketing to find the people I can serve, and then how do I figure out how to serve them,
Yeah.
right? And get into these conversations.
Yeah.
And you've got a great on the website. You've got that great download. How to sell without being sleazy. Which sales gets maligned a lot. I think probably because a lot of people's behavior isn't great.
Yeah.
But that's a big worry for business owners, right? They go, I don't want to seem sales. I don't want to seem
Like a
however.
nag. Yeah.
Right.
You're probably thinking sales is like you're nagging people, you're bothering them, you don't want to sound desperate. I mean, I have heard it all, but yeah, if you go to sellwithoutsleaze.com, you can get that. And it doesn't matter how you spell sleaze, you can actually misspell it and you'll end up at the same place.
There you go.
And really learn some of the things on how you can do it without those thoughts. And those thoughts are really what, I'm sure you've heard the term a limiting belief. It's just something
Right.
that you have coined it because you had a bad experience or, the typical car sales experience. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you did that and you had a bad experience. You're like, oh God, I hate the salespeople. Or you were in a mall back when you could go to the malls and the people in the middle of the mall and the kiosk talking to you. Hey, do
Right.
you want to try this thing? Can I curl your hair? It's like, no, I didn't come here for that. And, for the service-based businesses out there, it really, you got to think about your approach. And if
Mm-hmm.
your approach, you don't have to be a nag, you don't have to be a bother. But if you truly have a solution to solve someone's problem and you don't share it with them, why don't you think about that you're doing them a disservice? It's very similar to like going to a doctor. So my boyfriend and I just
Right.
had a call with his doctor prior to this. And if
Okay.
his doctor didn't ask certain questions to possibly think, oh, this might be causing this or this might be causing that,
Right.
he would be doing us a disservice. And the whole sales process is really not any different than going to a
Oh, I
doctor's
like that.
appointment.
I like that. Oh, I do like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Because the
the same
presumption is you can
thing.
help. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the presumption is you can help. They came to you for a reason. Okay, well, we just went to his doctor for a reason. He went hiking and ended up in the ER. We've got a problem, right? So, okay,
Right.
doctor doctor services are typically like blood labs, or maybe you need to go get a stress test on your heart. Like they're going to diagnose and see, well, what happened with him? How did this end up this way? Was the hike just that strenuous? Was it altitude sickness? And he's going to figure it out. Well, in
Right.
sales, that's the same thing we're doing. We're figuring out if we're the best person to help this person. And ultimately, the doctor's going to give us some referrals for my boyfriend to go get a stress test,
Right.
to, go get a sleep test, make sure he's sleeping really soundly at night, and all these other things to diagnose if there is a solution to any of these problems.
Right.
So in the world
Sure.
of accounting, like your wife or whatever, or if an accountant's listening, or you all
Right.
go to an accountant. So if you're a human being, you go get your taxes done or whatever, right? And they ask you, can you send me your W-2s? Can you send me your business P&Ls? They need all of that because that's like the x-ray in a
Right.
doctor's office. You can't diagnose somebody and help them unless you see what's going on behind the scenes. So the whole sales process, if you look at it, even if you have a product-based business and you're
Hmm.
selling online and you're dealing with manufacturers, you're dealing with buyers, it's not any different. They're,
Right. Yeah.
they wanna push sales, right? They want volume, they want good products, and they want good customer service. Well, on the service side, you're probably doing most of the selling, or your team is. And how
Right.
do you want them to be treated? Just, we were on literally the doctor phone call for probably 40 minutes. I don't think I've ever met with a general practitioner in general medicine for that long on a video call. Like, talk
Yeah.
about being generous with this time. I looked at my boyfriend like, I have never, my doctor, when I see her in
I
person,
was gonna
we're
say, yeah.
in and out, you know?
I'd be a little
And I had
worried.
Yeah, I was
So,
like, wow,
well,
45 minutes? Like, we went through, I had a whole checklist.
right.
I had a punch list, I had a checklist, but that's like literally the same situation if you're working with your prospects.
Hmm.
Think about that you're the doctor, you've got the white coat on and the mask now, and you're really diagnosing what's the best solution. Hey, by the way, you might realize that you're actually not the best person for them
Right.
throughout the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to tell people just getting started that, you know, no business is often much, much better than bad business. And because at least no business
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
cost you anything more than your current carry cost, right? That's a tough lesson for people to learn.
Yeah,
And,
it is, and the
so,
Black Swan Group, they talk about that all the time. There's no
right.
deal, worse than a horrible deal.
Then a
I
bad deal.
think that's
Yeah.
how it goes. Than
Well,
a bad deal, yeah.
let's shift gears just a little bit, if you don't mind. I am very interested, and I've always had this ever since I started being in business. Started my first business. This is number 4, and I've always been insanely curious. One, how people got started doing what they do, and really what the structure of that business looks like. There's been a real, I think, a real move on the part of many professionals, either if they're in a high-powered job or they own a business, to seek out what I would call team members in addition to the kind of traditional, right? When I got started, people were like, hey, sometimes what you need is the love of a good lawyer, sometimes a good accountant, you're done, and,
Right.
via con Dios. And I think, something that I would love to hear about is a little bit how you got into doing what you're doing. If you're willing, I'm sure you have told the Shark Tank story a zillion times. If you just want to tune out up here and let your mouth go,
Yeah.
that would be fine. But I would love to hear how you got to doing what you're doing, kind of what your business looks like internally, and how you serve your clients. I know you've got some one-to-many stuff. You do consulting gigs with people. Just kind of lay that all out. That would be awesome.
Okay. So just since we were on the accounting topic, for
Sure.
the accountants out there, my whole goal was that I had a lot of sales conversations. I was helping one of my friends grow her business. We've been in a mastermind group, and she helps accountants learn advanced high level tax planning. So the ways Warren Buffett
Oh, okay.
doesn't pay a lot of tax and stuff like that. So after so many phone calls, I was like, okay, how do I end the grind for these accountants where they're always feeling like super frustrated, completely stressed out? They have no control over who they work with. So most
Hmm.
accountants take on every client that comes to them,
Right.
and really taking like the bull by the horn, like my last client I was sharing, and charge exactly what they're worth. So, that's really where the abundant accountant was born. So it's,
Hmm.
how do you build a successful accounting practice? So with clients that you love, who are happily paying you every dime you're worth, not asking for a discount, you're not putting yourself on sale. And then how do you become detached from the emotional side of the whole sales process? So that's the biggie for the accountant. How do you go
Interesting. I
through
like
that
that.
process without being attached to like, oh my God, I
Sure.
got to get this next client, right?
Yep. Yep.
Instead, it's, oh, I'm going to interview them as much as they're interviewing me. And maybe if I can help them, great, right? And then
Hmm.
how to have these like paradigm shifts I've been told in class, or aha moments. where it takes their business to pretty much double in revenue is what I see, and propels them in moving forward. So our community over at the Abundant Accountant, is getting amazing results. They're increasing revenue, increasing profitability, but mainly increasing the biggest, most important part of their business, which is the sales process, which is the
Right.
nucleus of any business. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you don't have sales, then you have no business. You have a side job hobby
Right.
or,
Right.
something like that. So that's a lot about the Abundant Accountant and what I do for accounting professionals around the world. So as
Sure.
long as you speak English and I don't go any technical work. It's all sales. So if you're in
Right.
London, if you're in Australia, if you're in Ireland, if you're in Canada, US, it's all the same process in how you can engage and sell services and talk to your clients. So that's number one.
Now,
But
since you're making your travel wish list now, you want to just throw in like Jamaica and New Zealand in there too.
Scotland,
Okay.
yeah, New Zealand, Jamaica. I've already done most. So I'm learning Spanish.
Oh,
So
nice. Oh, cool.
un momento por todos personas de
There. Oh,
España y Mexico. Okay. But I need to speak a little bit more fluent before I could teach this class to you in
there you
Spanish.
go. There you go.
So that's why it has to be English focused. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
love it.
so the long story short, I had a business for almost a decade, and it was in the prepared food space. And you're probably like, God, Michelle, that's a complete opposite of what you're doing now. Yeah. Now I don't have any employees. I don't
Right.
have fixed overhead of 50,000 a month. I don't have cost of goods. I don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
inventory, fresh inventory, frozen inventory, retail, fresh. I mean, you name it. I had every problem on the planet.
Right.
So I had a lot of experiences, and in March of
Uh,
2017, I had to close that business.
okay.
My
Sure.
investors were like, no more. A couple of our competitors, MyFit Foods, Freshology, and the Fresh Diet, all closed 90 days before me. So the
Hmm.
trend was not looking good.
Right.
Uh, During COVID, we would be booming because now I'm ordering meals from one of the guys who wanted to rent my kitchen. So thank you, Chef Lance, for taking care of me.
Wow.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
I was looking for a chef at the time. This is probably 15 years ago now, 16. And I always said, I want a chef at an affordable price. And it didn't exist. So started that. When they say you're a little too soon or too early in the space, you're a
Right.
little too early, all of us. The ones who came right after us and watched all our mistakes, I guess, are doing very well right now. I rented out my kitchen at the time to a colleague of mine, Pete, with a company called Pete's Paleo. Great meal
Okay.
service. They ship nationwide if you ever want to order some food.
Okay.
And,
Cool.
I think his business tripled during
Oh, I was
COVID
going to say,
because,
yeah, he must be slamming
yeah, I
it. Yeah.
mean, all the restaurants that are closed in California, and it's like,
Yeah.
how much, if you're going to keep getting takeout, you're going to put on some pounds. So you got to watch what you eat. So some of these meal services actually are
Right.
really great solutions.
Well,
And
yeah,
I was,
it's amazing. It's been amazing to watch all those turns with COVID, and food service is such a great lens, right? Because you've got, like you said, you've got
yeah.
kitchens who were unable to adapt, and then it hadn't even occurred to me, excuse me, to even think about that prepared food space. But yeah, it's got to be booming, right? It's crazy.
It's booming now, where before it was struggling. Like we
Right.
couldn't, there wasn't demand, but now with no restaurants, no going out, no dates, no food at the movies,
Right.
I mean, you name it, those businesses are booming. Like,
Yeah.
from the ones that I know personally. So anyway, March of 2017, I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was, I think, March of 2012. No, not March, July. It was season 4 of Shark Tank. I tried to pitch Fitzy Foods. It was a very long experience. They sent me home twice, and then I pitched on the third visit up to LA because I was considered local. They
Okay.
fly in a lot of people, and they only film 8 hours a day. So some of the pitches took over 2 hours. You got booted. And a lot
Oh,
of the
wow.
pitches went more than an hour to 2 hours. Mine was
Mm-hmm.
almost 2 hours. My feet were shaking. I was wearing high heels. My feet hurt from standing on that square for so long. And then that was in July. Fast forward to October. when all the episodes started to air, they only aired 90 out of about 140 of us that taped that season.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was one of the people who got the email saying, well, it was great having you on the show, season 4.
Oh,
Unfortunately, your episode won't air. I was like, oh God, okay. So that didn't work out. And then my last straw was in, it was the end of 2016. I applied to go on The Profit with Marcus Lemonis. He liked family
oh,
businesses. I worked with my
yeah.
mom.
Right.
Yeah, did that. And then it was like my last kind of stretch. Like I was fishing and I'm like, okay, am I going to catch a fish or if I'm not? And they said, unfortunately, they took a pass on Fitzy Foods. They interviewed the whole staff. I mean, they did a very intense interview process because they
Wow.
interview your staff and your board,
Right.
your main owners and investors. And I was like, oh God, I think we have the right mix of chaos. So maybe we'll make it. And then March 2017 had to shut it all down, and that's when
Hmm.
I converted into helping one of my friends in my mastermind group grow her business. I was like,
Right.
anyone need help with sales? Because that's the thing I love. And
Right.
that's when I started having all these conversations with accountants. And I said, okay, I'm going to help CPAs, bring in more clients, increase revenue, and start
Hmm.
boosting their confidence. So that's what I'm going
Yeah.
to do because I noticed that you can learn and have all the technical skills behind you. You can have a master's, you
Right.
can have an MBA, you can have a CPA license, you can have all of these certifications. But if you can't communicate the value to a client and you can't get over being salesy, pushy, or you're like my
Hmm.
client who I just did the testimonial video review with, and she's like, she just shoved it in the side. Like, I'm just going to let someone else handle that for me,
Right.
because you're so terrified of the sales process and the fear that every time you think about, oh my God, how do I answer? How much do you charge? How many more people are going to call me and ask, how much do I charge when I
Right.
haven't even looked at anything? Right. And how to overcome objections with confidence. That's really where I made the turn. And I had 100,000 in personal credit card debt from that business because
Right.
basically it was business credit cards under my
Sure.
social.
Yeah.
And I was like, how quickly can I pay this off? How much can I sell? Who can
Right.
I sell for? I will work 2 jobs or, help 2 people. I said I'm never going to work a job again. So,
Right.
I was a contractor. Um, and never look back. I learned a lot of lessons and I take all those lessons that I learned from my prepared food company. And even, Chef Lance is asking me for support. Like
Sure.
I
Yeah.
got that business side of that business down. It's just you've got to have a niche, right? And I was like,
Right.
okay, what is going to be my niche? Because even the niche with Fitzy Foods, it wasn't niche enough. If I look at Pete with Pete's Paleo, he's done so well because it's just paleo food. There's
Right.
nothing else. He never deviated from it.
Right.
And that's so important in business and what you do. So, if you're listening and you have a product-based business, a service or whatever, it's like you got to get so niche and that's what I really focused on because even my first podcast where you can hear all about more Shark Tank stories, just go download Success Unfiltered. It should have been called Shark Tank Unfiltered, to be honest. It should have been Success Unfiltered. Like, what does that mean? Right.
Right.
And I was
Right.
like, oh God, I did it again. I made the mistake again. And so in October of 18, I started the Abundant Accountant podcast. And hey, it's really specific. It's how do you
Right.
get abundant? Or, how do you create the firm of abundance, the life of abundance for accountants?
Sure.
And it when I tell you having the niche, it works, and I turned down a ton of business. I am talking to a couple people to help them with sales, not in the accounting, but I don't,
Right.
it's not on my website. It's one-off, random situations where, like I said, 90% of my time is spent there.
Yep.
And when you focus on that, that's really how you can help. For me, helping people have empowered sales conversations
Hmm.
where no matter what you do, you own your value. You have the confidence to charge exactly what you want, and you
Right.
never give a discount or put yourself on sale.
Well, and I
I
think
hope
one
that
of the
answers your question. I
absolutely
think it
well,
was
and
how I got started.
yeah, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. One thing that is, at least in my experience, somewhat typical of people like us who, we run a business, we've owned a business. First off, and I say this all the time, as soon as you quit your job and you own a business, you're basically unsuited for future employment. You're
I'm definitely unsuited.
yeah, you're never going to be able to do
I would
that.
make a horrible employee.
And if you don't pay attention, you're going to end up, as you start your own business, working for somebody who is a lunatic and a workaholic, because I know that kind of talks about our entrepreneurial experience early on. But I think one thing that is really great about that story is clearly, you had a gig you had a business in the prepared food space, but all of these things were obviously about relationship building. And you're okay, yeah, hey, I'm going to go do the Shark Tank. I'm going to go do this. So that's relationship building, sales. And then eventually, and I think this works for a lot of us, we have maybe a good idea and we go and we execute on it. And if we're not paying attention, we miss that moment where we find product market fit, where we find our niche. I'm sure if somebody had
time.
Yeah. If somebody had said to you during Shark Tank, so how do you feel about, serving prepared meals only to accountants? You probably would have been like, wait, what? But, now you're like, hey, wait a minute, here's a group of people I can help, and I think that's exciting. And it's something that people need to listen to in maybe in the entrepreneurial press, we call it pivoting or whatever. But really what it is like, if you've got the bent and the personality type to be out on your own and do your own thing, you're going to have a curious mind and you're going to have a lot of energy for projects, and you keep at it until you find that fit. But once you find it, man, you do not let it go. Right? I mean, all in.
You just keep all in all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
It's so important. And one of my friends, Sean Croxton, who actually helped me come up with the Pitch Queen name. So when we were sitting here brainstorming, he has a very successful podcast. So if you've got issues with money, you should check it out. It's called The Quote of the Day Show. And he has the money mindset course. And,
oh, nice.
Just really got a niche. Speaking to people who had a lot of money challenges, who had beliefs from the way they were raised. And so anyway, what I'm saying is he would always say, and he teaches this and preaches it all the time, the riches are in the niches.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, they really are. I mean, opportunities just keep landing. So for the accountants, this quarter 2, I'll be rolling out an app for accountants to manage their prospects and leads and how, but I will be writing your messages for you so you can customize them, but you don't, because I'm not going to be able to work with everyone in my class. And also in addition to the riches are in the niches, it's how many people can you help and serve is going to reflect in your bank account.
Right.
So the more people that you can reach and help, the better. So with the app, if an accountant meets a business owner like you and you're possibly interested and want to know why they're unique and different, there will be a video that they'll be able to send you and different messages and emails that I've written that they've customized. So very excited about the Abundant Accountant app rollout in quarter 2.
Well, and that's a great idea, and I think it's one of the things that makes it possible for folks to, I've had businesses with a lot of employees, sold those. Then you kind of move down to smaller teams, because now the ability to leverage like that knowledge and the technique stuff that you've got into an app, right? And can you imagine saying that in 2010? People, you just couldn't have.
Not at all. But here's the thing of why the riches are in the niches. So this is the message I got from the app builder who's done this with other coaches like in HVAC, the mortgage industry, car sales. He said, we're looking for a consultant to help us build out sales and marketing content for a few of our potential clients in the accounting industry. Our team found you and recommended you as a possible person. Would you be interested to hear the details? I'm like, yeah, but that's only because I put 3 years or however many 2018 effort into accountants. And these
Yeah.
are how the opportunities will end up coming to you.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, I know you do have a hard stop coming up here in a little while, and there are two questions that I'm passionately interested about and that we ask all of our guests. So, number one, you have been doing your own thing, killing what you eat for quite a while. If you were talking to somebody and they were thinking of doing their own thing, regardless of what it was, and they said, hey, what one piece of business advice would you give me as I start out? What would that one piece of advice be?
The things we just talked about today. Get really, really specific on who you're going to help.
Okay.
And make sure to focus 90% of your time on the sales efforts, which is growing your top line revenue. So whatever that piece is, it needs to be about the revenue generating activities as a business owner. If you're not hiring a team of people, like you should get an assistant, you should get an accountant, you should have someone do your finances, a bookkeeper, you should have someone do your HR. You shouldn't be touching any of that. You should only be doing what you're really great at, why you started the business.
So
and that's meeting with clients in that space.
And what's your experience turning it around a little bit when you work with accounting clients, right? I mean, there are a lot of different specializations in the accounting world. Like you talked about somebody who's like, oh, okay, helping advanced tax strategies or small business or families or whatever. Like when you help them think about their selling, let's come back to that and that one piece of advice, like who do you serve? How do you help them niche down and narrow down a focus? Like that's a scary thing to do as a business owner, right? How do you help them do it?
It is. Yeah. And here's a great example. Ross, he's in my current class right now. He was terrified. He's like, Michelle, I got to just take everyone that's coming to me. I mean, I got bills to pay. I've got a family. Right. We sold our house. He's a digital nomad. He just moved to Acapulco, Mexico. And then they're going to go somewhere else every couple of months. Their kids are homeschooled. And I'm like, great. Well, if you want to make more money, this is what we have to do. And he trusted the process. And he now only works with business consultants that have over 300,000 in revenue in their business. So if they come to him with 290,000, he won't work with them. He'll refer them out or just say it's just not a good fit. And that's the hardest part. You're saying no to somebody. Could he help him? Yes.
Right.
But does it meet what his criteria was when he picked it? No. And when he can do that, I mean, he quadrupled his fees since we've met. So we're only on like week 7 of class or 8. He now only takes on clients that do his monthly services, full blown, all accounting, bookkeeping, you name it. He won't take anyone that will piecemeal it together. You know, he won't just do someone who wants bookkeeping or whatever.
Right.
And let me hold on a sec because of that, I don't even know how, I think he's added already 4,000 of additional revenue to his reoccurring revenue per month.
Oh, wow. That's great.
There's a lot of accountants too who have, I don't know if I can say words, but we'll just call them D clients. Basically, they need to go. You know what I mean? Those people.
We have never had clients like that ever. Yeah, never.
Yeah, this is an easy way to get rid of them when you put these rules in place. But let me just pull up. Yeah, so he's done just a little over 4,000 in just increased fees from where he was in the 8 weeks, plus 4,000 of recurring additional revenue on top of that every month.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Just by starting to say no and just picking, exactly who are you going to work with and who are you going to attract? Because once you start that conversation, those are the people that are going to come to you.
So how do you...
If you're like, oh, I help business consultants and I help restaurants and I help hair salons. Oh, and by the way, if you're an IT company, I'll help you too. You can't be everything to all people and then become really great at it. But if he focuses on business consultants and then they know other friends, guess who's going to start getting a lot of referrals because he's going to learn all the loopholes, the deductions, and everything that apply to this industry specific. So that's how they do it in class.
Yeah, and I love that. And having a process to help them uncover that, I think, is super important. And it doesn't matter what your business is. I mean, if you're selling socks or prepared meals or whatever, like you said, paleo, that's great. it just makes so many things easier.
Perfect. Everything.
And we've seen it. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Exactly. And we've seen that in the, my family's really big in the restaurant, kind of world, worked in it, know a lot of owners, and the folks who have been successful, especially during the pandemic in the restaurant space, were the ones who said, okay, great, we're paring it down. We're going to focus on what we're really good at. And, they offered a very limited menu that people are like, oh my God, this is amazing, and the folks who then said, hey, wait a minute, if you're getting takeout and you got to drive 20 minutes, I got to make sure it's going to be great when you get home, and on and on and on.
Yeah, it has to last. So they had to take more of the meal delivery service approach where if you make a meal, how is it going to be good tomorrow?
Yep.
Yep. One of my favorite places here is Puesto. And I called to order like this filet steak salad, and they're like, "No, it's not on the menu. We're doing burrito bowls." Because all their food actually is really horrible for takeout because it's only good when it's like right out of the oven.
Right.
And they had to pivot and change their menu to burrito bowls and steak bowls and burritos and things that have more of a shelf life, not adding preservatives, but things that will last and be able to reheat. So if the restaurants couldn't think about that, then
and it just goes to show the truth of what you're saying, which is as the market changes, okay, well maybe the way you interpret your niche changes too, and we go forward on that basis, right? So I think that's super important for folks to understand in how their business works. All right, and now the big question, the final question,
and read the E-Myth.
And read the E-Myth. That was actually a really, I thought that was, I read that early on in my first business. It was a really powerful way to look at things. I think it's very easy to lose sight of how important it is to have those playbooks, to have those roles, and to do only that which only you can do as part of your going forward. That's extremely important. When we talk to clients of any size, I'll be on the phone with people and talking to them. I'll be like, wait a minute, why in the world are you doing this? Like, somebody else needs to do this. This is not, no wonder you're having such a shitty week, So I think it's kind of you need to get out of that habit.
If I had to do accounting and bookkeeping all the time, I'd be going crazy.
Oh God, yeah, tell me about it. And it's no offense. At least for me, I'm not good at it. So why wouldn't I pay somebody who's really good at it to go do it so I can go off and do the things I am good at? Everybody makes money. Everybody's a lot happier. Everything runs smoother.
Yeah, and I would say that's another thing. If you think you're going to start a business without having to invest in anything, you're going to have to invest in something. So make sure you make those investments and leverage yourself properly. Because you're only banking on yourself. So as long as you're betting on yourself and you're not betting in Las Vegas, you probably have very high odds that you're going to succeed. Right. So bet on yourself. I meet a lot of accountants, they might not invest with me. They might not invest in other things. They think they can do it on their own.
Right.
Well, unless you've got a great grasp on the sales side, when you were working at an accounting firm, you had a partner in your firm bringing in the business. You are now partner at your own firm.
Yep.
You are in charge of the sales of bringing the business. Clients just don't show up on doorsteps all the time. That doesn't really occur very often.
Yep. Agreed. And I think it's powerful when people do understand, hey, part of the role of being in the leadership position, and eventually maybe you hire a sales force or this, that, or the other is, you've got to believe enough in what you do that you're willing to go talk to almost everybody about it and go find your people, find your tribe, so to speak. Find your niche.
Your people and listen to Chris Voss's book over and over again until it sinks in and practice it.
I like it. All right, so I know we're going to lose you, so I have to ask.
Not a paid commercial, by the way.
I have to ask the final question. If you could have a meal with any living public figure, who would that be, and what meal would you have?
I would go have a meal with Elon Musk, and we would have it in Mars on the spaceship. So I guess I'm going to eat a dehydrated meal. So it wouldn't be about the meal. It'd be about the conversation.
It would be about the spaceship and about the conversation. So why Elon Musk? Like, yes, I get the answer, but what's your particular, like, what really attracts you about that as this is your big meal with the one living person? And because, I mean, that guy is so deep into so many fields. What piece of it appeals to you?
All of it. Renewable energy, the electric car. I have one. It was my dream car from when the Tesla first came out. I got that last year. Innovative thinking, doing things what people say will never happen.
Right.
You know, and just saying, okay, watch me. It's very much of my mindset. He did live in San Diego. So
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he lived in Rancho Santa Fe.
Oh, okay.
But not anymore.
Right.
And I mean, there's just a whole slew of reasons. I just think it would be some fascinating conversations. It's almost like, you know, some people read a lot of books. I like to take a lot of classes and do things, you know, in person and learn from, you know, conversations or in a classroom setting. I would think that that's just like another, that would be my educational check mark for my goal for that year. So this year it's to take NLP classes.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Little
last
neuro-linguistic programming. There we go. Yeah.
Last year was learning about tactical empathy. And I volunteer at the suicide hotline for practice.
Wow.
And to give back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something. So man, that's heavy work.
If you need to practice, you could volunteer there. And you'll get a lot of practice listening.
I bet, man.
And empathizing with people on what they're going through. Because that's what the sales conversation is pretty much all about.
I like it. I mean, I don't like it because I hate to equate the sales conversation with the suicide hotline, but I see where you're going. Although some sales conversations have been like being on the suicide hotline with somebody where you're talking them off that bad place where they're like, my business is falling apart. What do I do? You know, and you help them out.
Right. Yeah. Especially for accountants. You know how many accountants help a business actually stay afloat versus go under? I bet if we had a better accounting firm watching everything and had a better pulse on our recipes and inventory management and cost. I mean, there were so many nitty-gritty details. I needed like 5 numbers people just in the numbers all day.
Yeah, I hear you. Wow. Well, I do think, you know, I think that idea of practicing empathy in these conversations is really important. And I know that you have to go, so we will wrap things up. Again, our guest is Michelle Weinstein. She is the Pitch Queen. You can find her at thepitchqueen.com. You can find her at how many URLs did you mention today? My gosh, there's so many.
I have a lot of URLs, but let's just keep it simple. You can go to sellwithoutsleaze.com. You'll also get the emails for podcast episodes if you join that and other things that I do. So you'll be automatically added to the email list if you go there, and you'll learn how to sell without sleeves. So there's 5 steps. It's the Pitch Queen system, and you'll get 1 step every single day that you get to implement and practice.
Oh, cool. I think that's a great idea. Very good. Thanks for joining us. You can find contact information about our guest in the show notes for this episode. This has been the How I Make Money podcast by Brand Distillers. To learn more, visit branddistillers.com.